I'd like to now begin with our first panel discussion, the participation of youth in climate action. Youth today are becoming young agents of change, be it through education, advocacy, technology, science, or law. They are tapping into their skills to speak up for climate action. It's time to empower young people in this panel discussion. Experts will discuss the examples of national, regional, and local policies which have helped youth advance their careers and create measurable impact towards the environment. Let me begin by introducing our eminent experts. Victoria Wanjogi, who's also a communicator, editor, creator of the Nika Silica and the co-founder of Biophilic Conversations. Victoria brings a deep passion for biodiversity, conservation, and storytelling to the forefront. Our speakers include Alhassan Muniru, who is a social entrepreneur, sustainability consultant, and SDG advocate who strongly believes in acting locally for global impact. This is what led him to co found Technology Without Borders Ghana and Recycle Up Ghana. Next, we have Ayantika Dutta, who is a sustainability advocate from India. She hosted the Sustainability Under Microscope podcast, educating the youth on business driven climate change solutions, and is known for her efforts in spreading awareness on plastic waste management, responsible e waste practices, and representing India's youth at C40 Cities World Mayors Summit. We have one more speaker, Lamia Alam, a climate leader at UNDP. Unfortunately, she was not able to join us today due to personal reasons. Before we begin, a few house rules for today. Please keep your audio on mute and videos turned off. Please free to ask any questions in the chat box below. LinkedIn Live attendees can share their questions in the comment section. Over to you, Victoria.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Richa, for that beautiful introduction. As Richa has said, I'm Victoria, and I'll be moderating this particular panel on participation of youth in climate action. So I hope I'm audible to everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. So welcome, Ayantika and Alhassan, and we hope that you'll have a fruitful discussion today. Yes. So the first discussion that we are going to have is against the backdrop of climate change. Are our national, regional, and local policies in place to inform and provide opportunities for youth? I'll start with you, Ayantika.
Sure. Thank you so much, Victoria, and thank you so much for inviting me in this panel. So if I have to, talk about policies which are in place, I think we have national policies which, is a national youth policy which is there and promotes youth involvement in, sustainable development, or in fact promotes the youth to, actually work towards achieving whatever their goals are in terms of, if they want to do businesses or whatever it is. But as much as, I would say the policy is there, I always focus on what an individual can do in terms of implementation of the policies, right? Whether or not a policy exists, I think at a local, national, and even at an international level, the youth action is now being perceived in a much positive way than it was, I think 2 years down the line. And I have seen so many people, especially the youth, come up, speak their minds, and are now being a part of the solution rather than just, communicating, okay, this is the problem and this is what is going to happen. But I think, that the youth are actually coming up, taking initiatives, talking about the solutions that's enabling collaboration to happen between people who are actually experienced and the youth who actually have that mindset to think broader and have ambitions, and then collaborate with people who have experience to draw out the lines as to how the things can actually be implemented. So that's a comment that I would like to make.
Would you give an example of a situation or a group of young people in India who have taken maybe such an initiative?
Yeah, so I would not name the person for few reasons, but I have a friend who has been, working with the tribals in Sundarbans to empower them and also, keep the mangroves healthy and, educate as to how they can also be a part of it. And then I know one more person who has been working in promoting clean air, and especially has been working in Delhi because as we all know, right, Delhi has the highest amounts of pollution levels. So that's one of the projects they have been working on.
Thank you so much, Ayantika. Indeed, youth are coming up to speak up their minds, and we need more of that. Alnassan?
Yes, thanks for the invitation. Yeah, I would say that yes, there are national, regional, and local policies in place. At least they are not stopping young people from speaking their mind, especially in Ghana. Yes, and sometimes they do encourage young people to join roundtable discussions and other activities. But what I would add is that at least what I see in Ghana is most of the action is actually being done by civil society organizations, NGOs, young people, and whatever. And I would want to see the government authority, the government bodies, get more involved. Yes, when you invite them to programs or whatever, they come, they would give lip service, but there's no action, right? So it's a lot of talk but less action. So that's where in terms of where we could get more improvement, that's where I would say that yeah, there will need to be that more push from the people that have the decision to make powers to really put more attention into really getting more involved. And of course, also, if we want to really, talk about it from a long-term perspective, our educational curriculum should also really teach more and really starting from really at the lower levels, primary school, really expose young people to information and knowledge about how to get involved in climate action and youth activism and how that really helps actually to transform societies and as well. And there, I think also more action could be done in that direction.
Thank you so much, Alnassan. And you've pointed one major thing, which is having this in the curriculum. And as we speak right now in your countries, Ghana and India, are the youth more aware of these policies that are there in climate change?
I would say not many young people, but that's where also, for example, my organization comes in at Recycle Lab Ghana, where we are working with young people, educating them and exposing them to issues related to SDGs, climate action, and really empowering them to be environmental advocates. We are working on also developing a waste education handbook, which will then be spread across the country to use as an educational tool to really expose young people to environmental action. And we are looking to partner with the education ministry to actually help us, disseminate these across the country. So yes, in the curriculum, we do have what we call environmental studies in school, but the contents have not really also been updated over the years, and so it really needs to be geared towards current ongoing development as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alnassan. How about you, Ayantika?
So I think the kind of youth engagement that I have been seeing and the recent changes as well in the education policy, or in fact, the way, studies are being done in schools that have changed a lot. So for example, I'll give an instance. I was looking at one of my juniors' textbooks now, and while I also had studied commerce in my senior graduation, I did not have the chapter called sustainable development. But if I look at their textbooks now, sustainable development and the economies of sustainability, these are all now included in the textbooks of these students. So the sensitization of, okay, there's something called sustainable development, this is a solution, and there's something that can also be done, right? So what eventually it's doing is it's enabling the students to think, okay, if I study commerce, then I just do not have to become A and B, but I can also become a sustainability professional. And there is a vast, big, career which I have as well, and I can pursue. So that's one of the changes which I have seen in the education, and especially because of the national education policy that also recently came up. And, it promotes more of a liberal education mindset where you can take up different subjects, and that sort of enables the key ingredient of sustainability, which is holistic thinking, right? If you are studying A and then you want to study B, which does not necessarily have to be from the same stream, you are able to join the dots of X and Y and then implement it accordingly. So I have seen the youth being more sensitized and people really talking about climate change. So everybody knows about climate change, which was not the case, I think, 3 years down the line in 2020. Now everybody knows about climate change. Now everybody talks about, okay, you know what, this is not good for the environment. Maybe we should not do this, or this is something we can do. And the youth are actively talking about it, that, hey, you know what, I want something which is environmental friendly. This is made out of this. I don't want that. So yes, there is a percentage of people who are still not sensitized, of course. But I would also say that that ratio of the people who are not sensitized are reducing. At least everybody knows about it. Now, if they are acting on it or not is again coming to a different topic, which is, the individual choices that one actually makes in their lives. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I've seen that education is a really beautiful tool that can be used, especially for the younger generation, to understand these particular policies. Because as we've said, for many youth right now, they may not be aware of the climate policies or any policy in relation to the environment. So they may not be aware of the opportunities that are available. So it's really critical that we have this in the education system. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then we'll go next. Now that we've spoken about policies which are more government-led, how can the private sector play a key role in this particular sector of youth participation? How can they encourage more youth? How can they even, since it's the private sector, how can they fund youth? How can they be involved in supporting youth in climate action?
Okay, I'll start. So again, here is something I would want to emphasize on, building yourself up, right? Now, if I think from a very logical point of view, right? I have a business, right? And a person who is, I'm sorry, I'm taking an age number, but just to, give a clear picture, if somebody of 16 years old comes to me and tells me, hey, you know what, this is, I want to work in your company, right? Now, why should I hire that person, or why should I support that person in the first level, right? Because I am a business at the end of the day, and I need to take care of what I am actually wanting to do, right? Now, at a very generalistic level, the other person is a 16-year-old. Now, it's on that person who wants to get involved with a particular business, has to prove that I can provide this solution and you need this solution, and I'm completely eligible to do it for you. So it's on the youth to show them that, you know what, as much as we have ambitions, we're also very practical about how this particular thing can be implemented. Otherwise, it just becomes about words and not work, which is very important for a business aspect of you, right? And whatever solutions also we as youth have to promote, we need to think that, okay, the kind of solution we are talking about, is it actually expandable, right? Can it actually be produced at a mass level where it is replacing something or the other? So as a youth, it's on us how we build ourselves, how we build our story, our the experience that we get. That is what is going to enable third party, which is the businesses in this case, to take us seriously, to also give them that assurance that they'll be able to trust us, and we are going to be able to walk hand in hand and develop a certain thing. So that's my take on this.
Thank you so much, Antika. You've spoken so much about trust, building trust, and also skills, which I feel are very important, especially for the private sector. Like you've said, they're business oriented, and they want to know, if we support your initiative, can we be able to trust you? Can we be able to know that you know what you're doing, and it's not you want our money, type of situation. Yeah. So thank you so much, Ayantika. Hassan.
Yeah. I would say, of course, like the private sector are the backbone of the economy. But I would start by saying that, first of all, private sector should first acknowledge the role that they play in basically in helping make a transition to a better world. So the private sector needs to take action for sustainability. And if they do, then also like that allows them to be able to, that means that they have to also, bring young people involved and listen to the young people, listen to the views and concerns of the young people. If they don't know how to be on the path to sustainability, they should listen to the views of the young people and work together to actually help how to actually basically transform their operations to being sustainable. And once they are already also on that path, the other also would be, in the end, partnership is key for the achievement of the SDGs. So they need to be open to listening, but also really also give opportunities also to young people to have a seat at the table. They should, fund initiative and activities by the young people. That is how they give young people a voice. That's how they empower them to be able to try new things and so on. Provide them internship opportunities, scholarship opportunities to really help them transform. And so basically by working together, and also even, fund their startup initiative, which then, will bring solutions which they can also then adapt as well. So the private sector, have a big role to play in, the transition to sustainability, and also in really helping also to empower and work with young people to actually, make the economics better.
Yes, I do agree with that. And then you said give young people a seat at the table, which I believe is critical. And one of the ways they can easily do that is through apprenticeship or even mentorship, because a young person may have a really brilliant idea, but they don't know what they require. So if they give them that opportunity to have a seat at the table, to know what happens around the private sector, then it would be very effective. And I'll follow up with a question. Do you know, or do you have, or have you partnered with any people in the private sector in your individual countries? And how has that worked? Like, we want to see if is this possible? Can we work with private sector to advance SDGs and enhance climate action? Ayantika? Oh, yeah, Alnassan, you can go as
Sorry,
well.
I actually wanted to even add a point on the previous one, because sometimes also, the biggest misconception by the private sector is that the young people, young activists are always against them. All right. So I think sometimes, the challenges that they are facing, they are not communicating those challenges well. So in relation to giving young people a seat at the table, if you would bring young people in and say, okay, you know what, we want to do better. We want to transition to, to a circular economy, to a green economy or whatever. These and these are the challenges that we are facing. Those challenges then are opportunity for young people, and say, how can you, come up with innovative ideas or solutions, or how can you help us, what ideas do you have to bring on board to the table to help us transform our processes, for the better? And so I think when those dialogues, when those platforms are created and those opportunities are given, then it really creates, like a win-win situation for all to be able to actually help make a difference as well. So I just wanted to add that. And on the question in terms of, some collaborations, yes, there are some partnerships ongoing. We've had partnership with some corporates who support some of our initiatives to work with schools and so on, and are also open to bring in to listen to the young people and support some of their initiatives. But again, I would say that more needs to be done for sure. What is currently being done it's not enough. And also there are still some stubborn private sector organizations that are not even interested, in supporting, youth initiatives or even coming to the table as well. So there also, we need to also push those ones also to also really get involved. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alnassan. And I also, maybe they may not be well understanding of what is going on or how they can involve the youth, especially for the stubborn ones. Yeah, so maybe more needs to be done on how, as young people, we are able to communicate our needs to the private sector as well. Ayantika?
Yeah. So I personally didn't have to, partner as such with a private organization, but I have been a part of, so for example, C40 Cities as well, right, which promotes youth initiatives and helps them, escalate it to a certain level. So yeah, I mean, having said that, what I also think is that, the way or the situation that we are in today's world, if we know the ways to actually, voice our opinions in the right manner, we would be able to do that. Maybe I'm being a bit, optimistic about this, but this is how I see um, life as a way, because I feel if I want to do something, I would do it and I will make a way for that to happen. So I think, reaching out to people. So if you talk to thousands of people, right, maybe through today is LinkedIn's world, it's Instagram world, right? If we reach out to people, thousands, say if we text thousands of people saying, okay, you know what, I want to talk to you about this and know your thoughts in this, because it's very important for us to let the other person know what is the benefit that they are going to get giving us that 15 minutes or 10 minutes time, whatever they are going to give, right? And have a conversation with them, take feedback from them, and then ask that, hey, is there any possibility that we can do this together, or is there a possibility of collaboration that can happen? And I think today it's extremely possible, right? Even WeNaturalists is doing work on similar ground. So yeah, so that's my point of view in this.
Thank you so much, Ayantika. And I like your determination in that when you want to do something, just go for it and do it. And for most young people, that may not be the case. So I believe that's one of the things, knowing that this is what I want to do and I'm going to go for it. And even if the partner or the stakeholder you want is very stubborn or something like that, you can sit down with them and try to voice your ideas, communicate with them, and that way they might be able maybe to understand and maybe to fund. Because I believe sometimes they may not know, or currently if it's a youth person, it may be seem like you are a climate activist instead of maybe promoting climate action. So maybe that's not something they are used to. So yeah, sitting down and explaining to them every single thing is important. And then we have a question from one of the guests today, from Nishand Venugopal. I would like to have the insights from the panel on the ways or methods required to use social media as an important medium to bring youth interested in issues related to climate change and climate action. Should I repeat that?
Should you want to go first, Alnassan?
No, you can go. You have the floor.
Sure. Yeah. So the ways to engage in social media, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To use social media as an important medium.
Correct. So it's not that something I quite follow, but I do that with like specifically for LinkedIn. So, if you have a project or an idea in mind, use your social media as a way to communicate that, right? Because if you see a lot of youth advocates, youth activists, they use social media as a medium to channelize their thoughts. So there's somebody called Aman from India who is a part of United Nations General Assembly, and is doing quite well in terms of how you can build terrace gardens and restore ecosystems. So his work is mainly focused on biodiversity. So if you go to his Instagram profile, right, and you go through the posts, you'll be able to understand the idea that he is actually trying to give. So social media should be, like I said, right, a medium of your thoughts, your perspective, and utilize it accordingly. So now it's on you whether you want to choose one platform or you want to engage in that way through all your social media platforms. Because once you're able to channelize your thoughts, then it becomes so much easier for the other person you're reaching out to understand that, hey, you know what, this person's work has been dedicated to this particular field, and yeah, I think it's going to be worth giving time to that person, because there's going to be brainstorming, some sharing of idea, maybe I can mentor that person, things like that. So yeah, social media should be used in that way, at least one of them.
Yeah, and I'll
Thank
just
you.
add briefly that the role of social media is huge. Over the last, the recent development over the last 10 years have shown how critical it is for anything, actually. Yeah, and so for youth activism, it's really an important tool, for us to actually really take our message from local to global. So it really allows you to interact and reach out to a wider audience, which then kind of really allows you to heighten your reach than the traditional media, or even working on the ground. So when used well, it's really a good tool that can help leverage and really give more attention to the message, and also to really get more engagement as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alnassan. I believe your question has been answered. Use social media as a tool, use it wisely, use it often as you can. Yeah, those are the key takeaway points for me here. And then please keep the questions coming. We have amazing speakers and they'll be here to answer your amazing questions. As we move on, can you give examples of national, regional, and local policies which have helped youth advance their careers and create measurable impact towards the environment? Ayantika.
Sure, okay. So, like I mentioned, right, in the first question itself, that national youth policy, which is there in India, that I think enables everybody to sort of accept the fact that, okay, we have to push the youth. But more than policies, I think it's also the acceptance of people which has to come into the picture, right? Because yes, policies are important, not at all denying that fact. It is necessary. But having said that, having a policy does not mean the mass of the people inevitably accepting it. Maybe by law, you would have a place, but not through acceptance, right? So more than policies helping or promoting, it's also about the acceptance, how you make the other person accept that, okay, your contribution is actually going to be beneficial and, you know, you take it forward. So if I have to mention about one, then the national youth policy is there. Then the NDCs, which India also has, it also talks about the role of youth that has in terms of promoting sustainable development. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Ayantika. And to add to what you've said, can youth be aware of the careers that are there in India, for example? Are they aware of this not aware of these policies? Are they aware of the careers that they can get in climate action?
So there's no, I think, a straight answer to this, yes or no. The reason being, there is a lot of possibilities that you would know, especially in terms of youth, because mostly all of the youth today are using social media, right? Whether that's Twitter, it's not Twitter anymore, it's X, or Instagram, or LinkedIn, or anything in that matter, right? And there's always something or the other which is coming up. Okay, this is this person doing something like that, this is that person doing something like that, and it's the information is just out there. So yes, a lot of the youth are aware of it, right? Because even in schools now, you started having these chapters on sustainability, which enables you to think that, okay, these 3-4 professions are not only the professions that you can take, but there's something else also as well that you can go for. And at the same time, you know, if we talk about the extremely underprivileged people, for them, yes, it might be a problem to actually figure out, okay, these are also the different terms of you know, your career opportunities that you have. But this is again where, you know, the role of NGOs, the role of youth come into place, where you go and advocate about, okay, this is the these are the new things which you can do, this is a problem, this is a solution, you can be a part of it. So
yeah, thank you so much, Ayantika. Alhassan?
Yeah, in Ghana, we have a saying that, you know, we have all the best policies on paper, but the issue is always implementation. And I think it applies to a lot of other parts of the world as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on the policy, I would say, yes, you know, there are some enabling policies there. You know, we have the National Youth Policy as well. They have the National Youth Entrepreneurship and Empowerment, you know, office, which, you know, provides some funding to some youth initiatives and so on. So there are some, you know, initiatives and policies. At least I know, you know, since I've had the opportunity to interact with other young people from other parts of the world, I know that some people, for example, told me that at least in Ghana, you know, as a young person, you can found your own NGO, you can found your own startup. In some parts of the world, you know, it's not even allowed, you know, you don't have the right to protest, you know, so many things, right? So for those of us in parts of the world where we have access to education, we can protest, you know, we can demonstrate, we can set up our own initiative. I would say at least, you know, we have, you know, some enabling environment, you know, to allow us to really leverage these opportunities that we have within our environment. Of course, I would say, you know, one critical thing also is, you know, what drives all of these initiatives always a bit of access to funding and also resources. So there more work could be done definitely to support young people with brilliant initiatives and ideas to really help them to implement those. as well. So there, sometimes it's a little bit lacking. And even in situations where sometimes the opportunities are there, then you also see the effect of politics, in terms of really who gets access to these resources are also sometimes politicized and not, and there's not fairness in the whole selection process and so on. So there are also some challenges there. But in general, I would say the trend is getting better, that there are more awareness and more policies, coming every day to really give young people opportunities. On the global scene, I would say the role of these youth envoys, the UN Youth Envoy, AU Youth Envoy, and all of these are also really giving opportunities to young people to practice, to get experience and exposure. We have different initiatives. Yongo is a big constituency for young people. So I think that there are some activities there, environmental clubs and so on, which helps really give young people exposure and practice. And I think the more that happens, then we really are able to really, strengthen and build the capacity of more young people to really act as change makers.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Add on to this. Sorry, Victoria.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I completely agree with Alnassan, because these climate action of youth, youth being a part of climate action, it's completely subjective to the geographies, because like Alnassan mentioned, right, there are pro governments, there are anti-governments of the youth initiatives. Now, specifically talking about India, because India is a pretty young country, as in the population is much younger, it just sort of goes without saying that it promotes youth engagement for what is going to help develop the nation, right?
Yeah.
So I would also acknowledge that it's not easy to just go and start a protest, even in terms of climate strike. But if you are somebody who's coming up with a solution, right, which can be implemented, then yes, you have different policies, different opportunities that you can scale it up as well. In fact, we have these, there was this recent, what do you call that, event that I went to, right? And literally, I'm telling you, from junior school students, right, 8th standard or 9th standard, 10th standard, people came and they were presenting their solutions in an event where industrialists are coming, venture capitalists are coming, industry, thought leaders are coming and presenting their ideas. So the government is already promoting the youth to come and put up the solution, so that the change can actually happen. So we have this policy, which or the initiative rather, that talks about Atmanirbhar Bharat. So you just become self-dependent, and that is where the role of youth also extremely comes into the picture, because today we are the future of the nation, right? We are the ones who's going to take it forward. So it's just so much clear that yes, if you are there with a solution, we are there for you.
Yeah, I truly agree with that. And then you've mentioned both global and local policies. So for example, in Kenya, we recently hosted the African Climate Summit. And one prior to the summit, there was the African Climate Youth Assembly, which involved the youth. And youth were able to bring in their ideas and all that. And during the summit, they were also involved in the Nairobi Declaration that was made during that day. And they were also involved in their opinions that they shared during the Africa Youth Climate Assembly were also shared during the summit. And we also had the children, there was a children pavilion going on during that particular session. So yes, there are opportunities for youth to speak, and youth do need a seat at the table, like we've said earlier, and they also need to be involved directly with the policies, not just having a youth event, but the youth event having the youth in the main event as well. So we have a comment from Busolo Boniface, who says, my take is private sector should be the backbone if we want sustainability, and youth involvement for the achievement of the SDGs and climate action what can attract youth is the art of making money. So we need creative eco businesses that generate income. Yeah, which I truly agree, because there are so many challenges out there. But as Alnassan said, we should see these challenges as opportunities and approach private sector and give them our ideas, our solutions, and maybe they will listen to it. So thank you so much, Ayantika and Alnassan, for such an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, I've been told, let me see if there's another comment. So I'd like to invite Mr. Amit Banka to this conversation. Yes.
Hi, Victoria, Alison, and Ayantika. This was an outstanding discussion, and I loved the entire conversation. So I couldn't help myself but to intervene, because there's so much that we all are doing in this particular space. But unfortunately, I've seen in the last 2-3 years of my interaction with youth that we've not been able to crack this particular age group in the right way. And I think all of the conversations that I was listening to, and I agree that we have to do a lot of more activities. We have to engage them a little bit more. The governments are doing their job by including curriculums and learnings and everything else. But I think, and these are more questions for all of you who've been in this particular space for so long. You interact with people for like every day. How do we make this as a priority for people, right? And I think the only thought process that comes to my mind is, how do we make it more exciting? How do we make nature or climate action more mainstream? So priority, creating this as an exciting thing, creating this as at a mainstream level, or not talking about climate action as threat or climate change as threat, but climate action as an opportunity, right? And these are some of the things that we've been trying to inculcate in our thought process at WeNaturalists as well, right? So I wanted to understand, how do you see this this entire change happening as in your interventions? Anyone? I mean, maybe we can start with Victoria in this case. She's been.
Yes, I can speak on that. So recently at the Africa Climate Summit, there was a discussion on why is climate change not as popular as Kim Kardashian, for example? And that's what you're asking.
That's right.
So he mentioned that we should be more, it was mentioned that we should be more innovative, more not be afraid of what we are doing online, approach everything with so much interest, and just think outside of like there's no particular box. For example, when it comes to the popularity of Kim Kardashian, what is Kim Kardashian doing that maybe climate activists or climate people in the young people in the climate sector can do? Like someone mentioned using social media, and like Ayantika and Alnassan said using social media. How are we using social media? Also, avoiding talking about more about the challenges out there and talk about more about the opportunities, make it more interesting, make it seem like this is something that we need to do now, because there's no other time we have to do it. We either do it now or we don't do it at all. So make it more interesting, make it more, just find outside the box. I'm also a filmmaker, and using films in such an interesting way, not using films to just talk about the challenges and talk about what people are not doing, but using films in a fun way, having it have, let's say, animation, having it have puppets, for example, making it more interesting. I have mentors who talk about fungi and in a film and make it seem like fungi must be the most interesting thing that this planet has to offer. So that's one of the ways I'd say going about it. Just make it more fun. Don't go about it being more about the problems, because out there people are facing so many problems. It's not just climate change. There's poverty, there's high economic standards going on. So when you talk about climate change, you're adding and talking about the problems in climate change, you're adding the problems to the already existing problems they have. So make it more interesting. Just show the world there's so much beauty out here, and we need to protect all this beauty. Yeah.
That's right. Anyone of you? Ayantika, you're on mute.
Yes, so that's so true. When Victoria was talking about, the films, there's one film particularly that struck my mind was Don't Look Up, right? About the asteroid that was coming in. Everybody was just so determined to not believe them. So yeah, that sort of, talked about how climate change was being perceived at that moment, and I was able to relate it. But coming back to your question, Namit, how probably the youth can be involved more, or understanding the mindset. So I think sustainability, right, being an umbrella of so many different things, it's particularly important to understand what that set of group of youth or one particular youth is inclined towards. For example, for me, what interests me in sustainability is the business side of sustainability, basically how the innovations can be done, yet we do not compromise on how the profit is being made, and we also take care of the environment, the people, and at a collaborative manner we grow. So that is what interests me about sustainability. But if I have to talk about somebody else, for example, say Victoria or Alnassan, maybe that's not their motivating factor. So it's particularly, that's what I usually do when I am trying to, engage with another youth, is I understand first of my very basic question is, why are you interested in sustainability? So what is that is actually motivating you? For you, it might be biodiversity, right? For preserving the natural resources. For me, something, it might be different. So maybe asking those right questions and involving them into the projects which is of their interest is what is going to help enable them. Because I tried to do something similar 3 years ago, and it was equally difficult for me to crack that space, because I was trying to involve the school students. At that point of time, the school students were mostly like, okay, school, tuitions, exams, done, right? But I think now it's a bit evolving, because different activities are also being encouraged, and the youth is also evolving that thought, okay, this is what I want to do and why I want to do. So maybe just asking the right questions would enable that.
Right. No, I totally agree with the power of asking the right questions. And I think the most critical thing is we'll have to empower and enable these people who want to or would like to ask the right questions. Because unfortunately, most of the questions are buried, and we don't give enough importance to them. Or probably there is a fear of going wrong somewhere. So I think asking the right questions is one critical thing as a behavioral change that we'll have to inculcate in the system in some form or the other. And I think with our Green Childhood program, in fact, we started doing that. That our motto was that let's enable people, let's make them aware so that they can ask the right questions about their environment, right? And that can be really exciting. That could be really cool, right? And I think what example of Victoria of Kim Kardashian essentially is that she makes it cool, right? Because she's been followed, and anyone who's a hero, ultimately they are being followed in some form or the other, and they make it cool. So I guess that's one of the answers. Sorry, Alnassan, I didn't want to take away your time, but it was.
No, it's actually
Please go ahead.
connected with what I wanted to say. I think sometimes, a lot of other people that are not into sustainability have this perception that, they are always being attacked, right? They think that, if you talk about sustainability, it's only meant for the hardcore activists, for the outlaws and so on. I think we have to find a way to normalize it, inculcate it in everyday life, because in the end, it is embedded in everything we do in every day as well. So if we find a way to normalize it, if we really, in all aspects of society, then with time, people will kind of like really get used to it. And of course, we also have to, just face the fact that it really changed. It's really slow, right? It takes about 3 generations if we really want to change an entire society. So also with regards to the target group, we should also target everyone. So because by normalizing it, so not only young people, but also, parents, grandparents, so also targeting all stakeholders in society with the message and how, and also then of course the message, the communication has to be tailor-made to the target group. So the way you would, communicate to grandparents is completely different than the way you would communicate to kids, and also, to adults, to people in corporate, people in the media, and so on. So everyone has a role to play in the communication and how you target which target group and so on. But we really, when we practice what we are speaking, and when we actually really just make it embedded in all aspects of society, with time, it's just gonna become normal that people, would just, recycle, without even thinking about it, right? So that's how I would say that's the big lever.
Right. Oh, I think that's a great thought. There's one thing that I like to add. We normally miss out the role of parents in this conversation, because today, the LinkedIn population today, they are all would be parents very soon, right? So if you look at that population, I feel they have to play a very, very critical role, because it's not only schools, because schools are essentially target driven, right? As you said, it's learning, tuitions, exams over, right? But part of their lives is also with parents. And I think siblings and parents, that's one area that we have largely missed out. And there's some kind of awareness that's required at that end as well. And I feel there must be programs which allows them to, yes, you've lived your life, you've been added to the climate change in some form or the other, but it's now at least you empower your kid to be more climate action oriented and maybe bring about that change in the household itself. So I think role of parents cannot be ruled out, and there has to be something or the other we can do to make parents more aware of empowering the next generation. So yeah, broad thoughts, and then we can take this as a last question, and then we can wrap it up.
So talking about parents, I think yes, there needs to be sensitization programs for them as well. But this is something which I'm talking from experience, is that might be a little controversial to talk about, but well, if we look at India, right, there is this top 1%, and then there's this middle class, right? When we're talking about the middle class people, say the lower middle class and the below the poverty line, for them it's majorly going to be roti kapra makan, what we usually say, right? Clothes, food, and shelter. To actually enable them to sensitize first, and then the youth, probably it's completely my perspective. You can disagree to that. That's going to be a bit difficult. So even for my experience, it has been, when I started my career in this, my parents did not completely understand into this, but they were supportive of whatever I want to do, you can do it, right? So that was their mindset. But now that I am working full time in this sector, talking about it or having a conversation in my family about this, that hey, this is what it is, or we should not be doing this because this is not right, because of XYZ reasons, the back loop of it, right? I even talked to my sister about it. So what has happened is my parents are now sensitized about it. Now they are like, okay, let's not do this because this is what it is. So why I am saying that it's difficult for the parents is, for example, right, somebody has lived 40 years of their life or 50 years of their life at a certain way. Changing the mindset or the perspective they have in, say, a year versus changing somebody's perspective, for us, the youth, right, who has lived 10 years or 15 years or whatever it might be, that's much more easier to do for the action to get rolling than it will be for parents. So for me, it has always been the youth, and then with the youth, like their family and their sisters and whatever it is, that it's going to fall into place.
So just one point, a small disagreement, or probably on this example would be, which I think what you said is absolutely right, but at what age is where the question is. So if you have taken a decision and then you have changed your ecosystem, and your decision-making ability came in at a certain age, right?
Correct.
But I'm taking the reverse, like maybe 5 years, 10 years later, your sibling or your kids, when you're talking about them, right, you have to make that change now, so
Correct.
that when they are, and also it ties in with the thought process of how do we create opportunities so that parents don't see this as a NGO work,
Correct.
tying in with
Absolutely.
your thought process of building sustainable businesses, and that ties in with our eco entrepreneurship or green entrepreneurship thought process, that where people see this as an opportunity and not as something which is a driven work, driven by charity or driven by various foundations, because it's not a mainstream business, right? So the jobs are also not mainstream. Although we don't know that Coke and Pepsi and all these people have been appointing environmental scientists for a long time now, right? And there are massive jobs opportunities available in sustainable solutions. But having said that, that's still not mainstream, right? So I think, yeah, that's where we are. Paucity of time, we are almost reaching 2:15, and I've been told that there are people waiting. So thank you so much. Victoria, over to you, please.
I'd like to say the last point. The way we approach it, the way I'd approach parents and the older generation is, don't talk to them about the word climate change, because it's something they already know, something they've actually experienced. They already know what has been happening. So just getting back to how their life was and talking to them about what has gone through throughout their life journey. Yeah, so for the interest of time, I'd like to say thank you to WeNaturalists for inviting me to be a moderator on this panel. And thank you so much, Ayantika and Alnassan, for being amazing panelists in this discussion. And thank you, Amit, for joining in and having us brainstorm on certain issues. So thank you so much, WeNaturalists. Thank you so much for the guests. And yeah, have a great morning, afternoon, wherever you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.